Hello and welcome to the Humanware See Things Differently podcast. Each month, join your hosts Peter Tusick, Rachel Ramos, and David Woodbridge as we bring you engaging interviews from guests, interaction from our one-of-a-kind distribution partners, stories that'll take you off the beaten path, current promos, shows where you can find us, and so much more. So stick around.
Good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, what is it, Thursday? It's always Thursday. We always come to you live, pre-recorded on the third Thursday of every month. Hi, Rachel. How are you? Happy May.
Hey, Peter. Happy May.
Happy May. How was your first 17 days of May?
You know, they were absolutely incredible. Gone biking and hiking and been to a comedy club. It's been a great May so far. How about yours?
You know, it would have helped if I would have checked the actual day this was coming out. I just assumed it was like the 17th, but it's actually going to be coming out on the 15th of May. So I don't know, you're almost talking about the next 2 days in the future, but that's for a whole other episode. We can predict what you've been doing the first 17 days of May on the 15th of May, which is fascinating. But David, happy May.
Thank you. Look, I'm always amazed that I always come to the future. So, you know, you guys think it comes out on Thursday. I actually know it comes out on Friday, and the fact that, Peter, you've given me 2 extra days in the future, I'm just loving it now, so I'm way ahead of you guys.
This is true. I guess technically you're always a day ahead, more than $1 ahead. You're just everything ahead.
Don't get too carried away on the dollar bit, because, you know, every time somebody says, how much does this cost in Australia? Oh, it's $1 million. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it is important to note you're like me. You're a man of the people. You're recording this on a public holiday, so thank you for stepping up to the plate on a public holiday. Just putting in the time to be a part of See Things Differently, the podcast. So one other piece about this episode is, before I get to our special guest and someone I can't wait to talk to, is we also are joined by Matthew Paquette from Humanware. How are you, Matthew?
Hey, I'm really good. And David, if I may ask, given that you're living a day in the future, do you mind shipping me the lottery numbers or something?
I certainly will. Absolutely.
Awesome.
For the Australian lottery or for one in Canada?
Either one I'll take.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So Matthew is at Humanware, is our product manager for the Victor Reader Stream, the Stellar Trek, and other talking products. Matthew is here because he's quite knowledgeable on the pop culture side. And in this sort of the theme of May is going to be blindness in popular culture. You know, we've touched on Braille, we've touched on low vision, we've talked about the GPS or O&M sort of sides of things. We've talked a bit about libraries and books and talking devices and products. We wanted to kind of switch it up and have more of an open discussion about blindness, since Rachel, myself, and David are all blind, and amongst many other Humanware employees, and certainly many of our listeners are blind or low vision. We want to talk about blindness and its representation in pop culture. And when we sat down and kind of brainstormed on who we could talk to, somebody came to mind who is a friend of mine who I oftentimes kind of pass in the night over the years at many different conferences. He is a producer and a consultant. He's worked on many TV shows, including Daredevil, including C, and certainly other Netflix pieces, and does lots of consulting. But to me, I know him as somebody who is a motivational speaker, somebody who does a lot and cares deeply about employment, works in the transition space for, blind and low vision kiddos going from high school to whatever may be next, to the workforce or university. And I know, Rachel, you have also had that sort of encounter with our esteemed guest here, Joe Strechay. And Joe is joining us, and we're going to talk a bit about kind of his journey and how he kind of advocates for the representation of blindness across some of these mainstream media and the shows he works on, but also just a bit about his story. What's up, Joe? Welcome to See Things Differently with Humanware.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. Humanware is a great company and organization, and being surrounded by some fantastic people here. Yeah, Rachel, we just saw each other for the first time in many years, I think last year, and I think around this time, actually. And Peter, I've known for many years, and all you guys, and but thank you for what you guys do.
Oh, we're a small part of this. I think when we look at and it's very interesting to me because I think we all grew up. I mean, you're blind. Obviously, we are blind here, myself and David and Rachel, and a lot of times, the reference, especially when I was a kid, would have been something like Mr. Magoo, right? Or like there was like some blind scene in Dude, Where's My Car, right? Or there was just a lot of the stereotypical either buffoonery blind people, just kind of that bumbling, fumbling stuff, or just maybe something that was a bit over the top with its inspiring qualities. Can you touch on a little bit how you ended up kind of getting into the space of working with the perception of blindness in film?
Yeah, I can say I kind of got into the film industry through the back door. My I like I came out of high school wanting to work in media, and whether it was sports or entertainment media, and went to college and uh, studied public relations and broadcasting and media at East Carolina University. Go Pirates! So I went to college there, and I was already losing my vision. I was legally blind at 19 or 20, and and like what I saw for the future, I was trying to figure it out, and I didn't have the blindness skills that I have today, and I didn't get them in school. I wish to anything I'd gotten them in school. I had it on my IEP that I was visually impaired and all this, and I had a learning disability growing up before all that. And I got lots of services for my learning disability, but I didn't get any services for my visual impairment. And I kind of stumbled my way through and figured out some things. And East Carolina University was really good to me, their Student Disability Resource Center, and introducing me to, like, I'm dating myself, books on tape, actual tapes, like 4-track tape, you know. Uh, so going through learning like how to access my books, and dealing with professors, and talking about, and it wasn't very evident to the public, and I didn't know how to use a cane. I didn't have a cane, and I wanted to learn how to use a cane, and kind of some mishaps with doctors telling me that was not necessary. I was obsessed with TV and films. Like through high school, all 4 years of high school, I worked at a video store, again, dating myself. And it wasn't Blockbuster. Everyone asked me if it's Blockbuster. It was a small mom and pop one closer to the video store in Clerks. It was called Corner Video Photo. We also developed photos.
Did you have a Jay and Silent Bob hanging out around the front?
Oh, dude, I was a fan of that show, but definitely there were still a lot of similarities to our video store and that video store. And we were in New Jersey as well. So I graduated from college, and it was, and I left early to do an internship up in the New Jersey, New York area, working in sports marketing and PR. And I ended up at this one working with the NFL. And September 2001, like I started in August, and the economy wasn't doing great, and our firm was getting smaller and smaller. And September 11th happened, and we got smaller and smaller. And by November, I was getting laid off, and I was definitely losing more and more of my vision. And I didn't know. I just started getting services at that time. I learned how to use the white cane. I learned how to use technology, which changed my life. Started learning Braille, and really, a lot of those blindness compensatory skills really started changing my attitude. But I after I got laid off, I took a job as a substitute. Went in for a substitute teacher job and got offered a teacher assistant job. And I was like, I need to pay the bills. And I did that for almost 2 years in emotional behavioral special ed in northern New Jersey. There were two students who were visually impaired there. And wasn't working with them all the time, but I got to work with them at times and meet the professionals who were working with them. And it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I already was searching what I might go back to school with because I was underemployed. I started looking at opportunities around education, and the New Jersey Commission for the Blind suggested some opportunities, and I was like, oh, teaching children who are blind or visually impaired. I like teaching. Maybe I can help give those services that I didn't receive growing up, help people get those skills. And so I started looking at the programs around the country, and I ended up at Florida State University. And while I was there in that program, I specialized in teaching children who are visually impaired, orientation and mobility, a little bit around VRT or vision rehabilitation therapy, and a specialty around transition from school to work. I was myself and a friend Tiffany were the first folks to add that specialty to the program. Along the way, we in one of our classes, a professor had us analyze films that involve blindness and critique them. And I had been doing that already, so I just started writing about them. And from then on, I was watching everything that involved disability or blindness and trying to critique it a little bit. And I never thought it was going to lead to a career. I had multiple jobs after my graduate work in the blindness world, helping people who are blind, like teaching them how to travel in New York and New Jersey. I did some work in Florida teaching adults who are blind, traveling around like 12 counties, VRT type work, and I then transition services in Florida as well, where I met Rachel. And then this organization, the American Foundation for the Blind, recruited me and created a job for me around employment and writing and stuff. So I was writing about employment and traveling around the country and doing trainings for young people who are blind or low vision, which I love to do. And I did at it as kind of like a hobby prior. And during that time, I started at night getting bored of writing about employment all the time. I started writing about popular culture, like TV, movies, like popular people who are blind or low vision in the media or out in the world. And that took off, and I started it became popular. People started contacting us about commercials that they were casting people who are blind or low vision for it, so to help them find people. And then a writer's room for a USA Network show called Royal Pains reached out.
Oh, I watched that. Love that.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I worked on season 5, I think, 3 of the episodes in season 5. Where there was a love interest who is blind introduced. So they built my slang and lingo into the character, and I gave thoughts on what the situation was, what they might do. And then this really secretive show reached out. They started interviewing for this opportunity, and I found out it was Marvel's Daredevil. At the end of the interview process, they called me up, and I remember I was on vacation with my wife in Florida. And they're like, why didn't you interview for this or apply for this? And I'm like, well, I have a full-time job, and and they're like, well, we think you should come up and interview. Would you be willing to fly in? So I fly and I take another day off and after my vacation, and I fly to New York and I interview with the producers and the director and the different departments, and I give them input, my thoughts, and even like the stuff I knew about the history of the character and from growing up with it. So the next day I show up and I meet with Charlie Cox, and we're first sitting down and talking, and he's asking me questions, and we're talking about my thoughts on the character and what could be done, and things I've seen over the years, and what not to do, and how I would provide training if I was working with him. So we started working together. We went through all the little things, here and there. And then everyone learns differently. He also recorded me doing things, and he noticed things about like how I hold my cane. I do like an adapted technique between the long white cane technique and like the traditional cane technique, using a traditional cane because it's more durable.
Have you noticed? I mean, so Daredevil being where they really did take your considerations into account down to the T, right? Whereas some other shows didn't, and then they realized like, wow, we're getting a lot of blowback, or it just was an awful portrayal of blindness. I mean, and it has nothing to do with the character, but just the way she was doing things, like opening all the juices in the freezer or the fridge to find the cranberry juice. I mean, that's just silly,
that's crazy.
Right? I mean, have you found that since that time that you're able to be included earlier on some of these shows, or that they're reaching out to you earlier, or has it really changed the way that of how you're finding or looking for work?
Yes and no. Yes, definitely people are looking out earlier. The fact that I worked with like Marvel's Daredevil, and it was well accepted in our community for the most part. And the OA as well, where Britt Marling. Soon after that, um, yeah, people started reaching out to me, and at that time we didn't like. One of my early questions to the producers was, is the actor blind? Before I knew who it was, Charlie Cox, before they told me about the actor, and they go, no. I'm like, okay. And that was the norm at that time. And then I went on to work with Britt later on, and who as well in the child version, and in Daredevil there were other characters. Some were like more open to my feedback than others, like Scott Glenn. I don't know if you know the character Stick,
Yeah.
from season one and all, and he and I think I just saw him in something
In White
recently.
Lotus.
White Lotus. Yeah.
White Lotus, yeah, I just saw him in White Lotus. Yeah, I was like, it's so trippy to hear his voice. Um, and I'd be giving him notes, and he would just walk away from me. And the executive producer or the director would be like, he just walked off. As shows reached out, and then like I started be my voice grew as because I didn't know what it was to work on a big film set until Marvel's Daredevil. I believe I have a responsibility to make sure that what the portrayals I put out there, whether they are actors who are blind or low vision or not, are respecting our community, respecting like something I would look at and be proud of. Because I know I never saw characters who are blind for the most part that reflected myself.
A quick question, Joe. On the flip side of earlier, you mentioned you were giving notes to an actor and he kind of wasn't receiving them very well. On the flip side, I want to ask, who's the? Because I look at your webpage and you've got pictures with Jason Momoa and Charlie Cox and a bunch of actors. Who would you say is the person that was like you felt a genuine interest and engagement into learning what it is to be visually impaired?
I would say Charlie Cox, Britt Marling, and Britt, she's very experiential. Overall, she wanted to experience it. We spent like 8 hours wandering around Jersey City under sleep shade, going to restaurants and just navigating miles of street crossing. I didn't let her cross the street; she would hold on to me, so I was guiding her across the street. I did that with Charlie too, but um, I would say Britt and Charlie were definitely the most. And on C, there were hundreds of folks, and there were lots of folks who were super respectful. But Charlie still gives back to the community. I think he just visit. I set up for him to visit the New York Institute for the Blind, or New York Institute for Special Education in the Bronx, like a month ago.
Wow.
He wanted to go. When he has time, he wants to go visit schools and talk to kids. And he knows he's not blind, but he knows that he has a responsibility to represent.
When I first met you, you were on kind of a motivational speaking circuit, coming in and talking a lot about really just, getting it done, taking a chance, putting yourself out there, being straightforward. What would you, and have you had anyone, because I mean, Rachel, I know gets this, David, I'm sure you get this, I get it all the time. How can I do what you do? And as a blind person, what I try to tell anybody is, it's about verbal and written communication. Very, very important in this blindness technology space where we are. The better your communication skills, it doesn't sometimes even matter how much you know a product or how well you know a product. It's how well you can communicate your knowledge and help others learn. And have you had anybody come up specifically, or has anybody else broken into the space to be an advocate in this sort of same role you are? Or what would you tell those those who want to do it? Somebody who's blind and says, gosh, this show or this place or this play or this anything is not doing a good enough job. What does it take, or can it take to get into something like that and convince people that you are going to be, able to provide them with a lot of guidance to help them out? What would someone need to do, or what would you encourage somebody to do to get into it?
I would say knowing, I do believe it's important to know the professional side stuff, like the research, because I'll use like research statistics around echolocation or how sound moves, or about little details. So I think the professional side does help a lot, but also like being out there. And I think what you're saying, like how to communicate it, because I have to be able to reach people where they are. I define how I'm going to communicate notes, how they receive notes, how they learn, all kinds of things. Working on All the Light We Cannot See for Netflix. Our actor, it was photophobic. She was legally blind. And truthfully, we ended up changing her vision. She's technically not legally blind anymore because I had brought up that she might need like some kind of sunglasses with like a red tint for bright light, because otherwise she's going to be squinting and the character is totally blind. In All the Light We Cannot See, and I was like, but we could play it light perception, but we're gonna have to change other scenes, and the production took it to a different level. They were like, well, what about contacts? And they had an expert create these like contacts that were a certain color that worked best, that didn't come across on camera, but also allowed her to see better in bright light. And later on, after our show, she ended up getting a prescription for those contacts, and now she's not legally blind. I think having a media background, knowing how film works, helps. I think having training, so like what works, because when I'm giving my opinion, it's not just my opinion, it's like based on research, but then there's practical side, and I also include I have a focus group of people who are blind that I reach out to that are under non-disclosure agreements.
Joe, I wanted to jump in. I just love everything that you're saying, and of course, when I came across you almost 20 years ago now, you were so enthusiastic, and you just inspired me, because I just love life and tech and all that stuff. But when I saw you operating things like, we're taking it back a bit, but Blackboard, or Canvas or any of these things, it was like, how do you do that? And you were just a great champion of accessibility, of technology. How have you kind of incorporated that into your work with either your clients that you've trained or with the actors? Like, have you used maybe your own technology on the set, an iPhone or Android or something? And I don't know, what kind of feedback have they given you? So I guess that's a couple questions, but what have you used and how have they responded?
I use lots of technology, and I love technology. I'm not like a super expert like you guys, but I love tech. I'm willing to try new things and apps and devices and software. I love Voice Dream Reader, the app, which is now subscription. I love that app. Actors who are sighted, but directors, Francis Lawrence and Dave Bautista, who's an actor, they're now using Voice Dream Reader to read scripts.
That's wild. I like that. I wish we could have Winston Chen on. He would have loved to hear that too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I've never met Winston. I've introduced so many actors and directors to Voice Dream Reader, and they can listen to scripts in the car or when they're doing other things, and we get so many updated scripts, and you don't want to, like, so many versions, and like you don't want to read everything, like, as a sighted person. That's what they tell me. And so adding the listening ability to it really helps them. And how many people have learning disabilities out there? Tons. 72% of persons with disabilities have non-visible disabilities, and learning disabilities are part of that. So a lot of our tech also helps people with learning disabilities.
Actually, it's quite funny, Joe, because I'm now actually a karate person. So I've been doing karate for the last 3 years, and when I used to walk into the dojo, people would say, "Can you wear a Marvel outfit next time you get to your black belt?" And I go, "I'll probably think about it." But I've always found Marvel Daredevil was actually really, really good, and the actor always seemed to really get it. But what I was wondering about too was how does all this go into, do you have any input into the audio description side of things? Because I remember when I just started watching The Last of Us here in Australia, my wife said the audio description's good, but they're actually missing out nuance in it, because I think there were some situations where the main male character was grimacing or doing something, but the actual audio description skipped it. So I'm just wondering, does your sort of insight into the character building also go into the audio description side of things?
It does. I'm blessed that on season 2 and 3 of C, and then on the show All the Light We Cannot See, I got to provide input to the audio description team on things that we would like to be included, but also like going back and watching because what I heard and I saw, there were moments in season 1 that were described in ways like there's this moment. Where there's character Belu is walking to what is called she's walking to New Alchemy, and she's using her hand to feel the sun on the back of her hand, and it's on her face to use for directionality. And it says she's feeling the air, and I'm like, she's not feeling the air. So on season 2, I kept bothering my friends at Apple and who I'm really close with. Obviously, I love my Apple products. Some of my best friends there, and they championed me getting involved with it and giving input. So typically, productions have nothing to do with the audio description in a film or show, and there were rules designed originally by sighted folks around audio description, but that have been updated in the later years now around. Involving the blindness community, all the light we cannot see. They made it happen, and they had Arya do the narration, and it's an 11-minute piece for the whole series, so it's not every episode, but it goes through and has her talking, reading through, and they're describing its notes from the costume department and other folks and the sets, giving you more detail about the show, and I thought that was pretty awesome and groundbreaking. But there are things I want to do in the future too. I would love to see a world where, and might go into the AI part of it, but I would love to be able to select low, medium,
Verbosity.
I don't know,
Yeah.
more detailed audio description.
What I think we'll wrap this on is just you're not done. Nobody's done with this. And there's so much, yes, we see perceptions maybe shifting. We see that there is a bit more inclusion. Sometimes you're getting that call earlier, but there's so much more you can continue to do. And there's still lots of ways even to improve both the perception of blindness across TV shows and film, but also just in what a blind person can get out of TV shows and film. And I think that's what's neat here. And so your ability to play a part in that and hopefully get some others into the field, to play a part in that means a lot. So I really, really, it's been awesome to talk with you, and we appreciate it. And I know you're going to stick around with us, but thank you for sitting down.
You know what? To me, you made my month because you mentioned that Charlie Cox integrated a lot of your mannerisms and everything into his character. So in a way, I feel like I've just talked with Daredevil, which is I'm such a fanboy of the show. So that's awesome.
He's great, and he used voiceover when they were making the mask for season 1. They had his face in a mask where he like this mold, and he couldn't see, so he turned on voiceover on his phone and started using his phone that way.
That's awesome.
Joe, can you tell, and I know that you have lots of ways for people to stay in touch with you, what is the best way for people to follow and know what you are up to?
I have an Instagram account. I have a Facebook account. I'm always Joe Strechay, Joe, and Strechay is Strechay. I have LinkedIn at Joe Strechay.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. Thanks a ton for being here. All right, welcome back to another segment here on the See Things Differently with Humanware podcast, and we're going to have our hot take. Joe is sticking around, and we're going to talk about AI. And more specifically, AI is really the buzzword of today, right? I mean, we all know there are tools that help us do all sorts of things, like recognize, describe images or recognize objects we may be holding, or lots and lots of pieces. One of the biggest concerns that I think comes through is when we use, generally speaking, artificial intelligence on the most common ways we tend to use it as blind people, through apps on our phones or maybe through a website, we are providing information to a server, and that server is spitting information back to us. And a lot of what we send through can be subject to, can really bring up lots of privacy issues. And what I want to talk a bit about is what each of our concerns or thoughts are on our use of AI, and what are we willing to give up to get that sort of usefulness. And what I mean by that is, when I take a picture of a bank statement, just because I really need to find out the amount of a bill, or, even give up a lot of my personal info in theory, just also that I can get that answer. And again, it's a very simple way to put it, but I think it's something I want to touch on. And, David, I'm assuming, and I don't know what the regulations are where you are in Australia, but here in the States, things are quite wide open. Whereas in Europe and in Canada and certainly in other places, there are different privacy laws that come into play. Personally, I tend to throw caution to the wind and just utilize AI, because I tend to let it all go. And I figured Google and everyone is data mining me so bad anyway at this point that I might as well. They probably know how many hair follicles I have. That's just probably already a done deal. But I tend to be a bit less concerned, and probably a bit less concerned than I should be. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? Are you willing, and how do you use AI? And are you willing to give up your personal identifiable sort of information at times just to get the benefit of using the tool to help you, so you don't have to rely on other people?
It depends on the tool, right? So there is Be My Eyes, which you take a picture, it sends it to a server, like you were saying, and then it gives you back the results. Whereas Seeing AI, to my understanding, is local. So if I have a new credit card, or like you were saying, a bank statement, I would prefer to take a picture that doesn't either have to send it anywhere. You download the necessary tools onto your device, and then it can give you back the information. Obviously, there's not a lot of getting around it, because if we use the internet and don't live in a cave somewhere, we have to give up some type of privacy. But for what I can, I prefer to do things locally, if at all possible.
I sort of go around with what Rachel's saying. I don't mind people knowing anything about me, like where I've been, what I'm doing, what I watch on television, the type of books I read. I really don't care. But when it comes to more private information about my birth certificate, my passport, my marriage certificate, my financial statements, that's where I start going, you know what, this is getting close to very extremely private information. So I tend to try and do things locally as well, the same as Rachel's talking about. And I tend to use my phone or my Mac, because as an Apple person, I wouldn't trust Windows or Android as far as I could throw either one of them. So I tend to restrict my stuff, because Apple's extremely big on privacy. So I and it may be all marketing hype sometimes, but I thought, well, even if there's a little bit involved, I'll probably tend to use my Apple stuff, particularly when I'm doing banking and everything else. I tend to trust the AI more than I trust a human being, because it's like, well, that human being could now sort of hopefully, maybe wander off and talk to other people about, hey, you know what this guy just asked me about today? And they're like, isn't that hilarious? Whereas the AI system, okay, I guess the people that develop it can go and talk about, random data and that sort of stuff. But it's very weird. I've noticed lately I almost prefer going down these rabbit holes with AI than I do with a person.
I just never. You got me thinking about it now. I can say I'm pretty open with AI, except there is an exception. In my work in film, like we're on film sets and around all kinds of things, I try not to use any of my AI devices for that. But out in the world and at home, I'm using it all the time.
How about this one, though? Facial recognition. We're going to end on this. Do we, as blind people, because this comes up all the time, especially with the Meta glasses and with lots of AI tech, do we or should we have the right to, for ourselves, because currently this is not really possible, to take a picture of and get descriptions of people generated by AI, whether it's who is this or what does this person look like, or should we be able to do that? Yes or no? This kind of comes into the same vein, because in a sense, of course, I want to know. I would love those descriptions. But technically speaking, I mean, the person on the other end doesn't say that that I can use AI to know who they are or what they look like, and there's going to be these inherent biases and different things happen.
No, because I think it's the same thing. I think because you're literally if you're wearing the Meta Ray-Ban glasses or whatever else, I mean, yes, you can do it, but it's like wearing a pair of camera-based glasses into a bathroom or something. I mean, nobody knows what you're doing with that camera, and I just think it adds more angst to the whole picture about people using cameras and AI.
I would say no also. At the airports, at least here now, when you go through the security checkpoint, you have an option. You can either be identified by the camera or you can tell them to turn off the camera and you can be identified with your ID and boarding pass. And I prefer that. And of course, who knows how many surveillance cameras we are just on every day just by nature of walking around, going into shopping malls and stores. But if I have a choice, I'd prefer not to be, just because I think if we, let's say in the future, took a picture of someone through Meta glasses or some other smart glasses and they said, oh, that's Bob Smith and he's wearing a tie and a suit or whatnot. It's like Bob Smith should introduce himself to me first before AI can tell me who he is. I'd rather think that an organic introduction would be better than an AI already telling you who someone is.
I have mixed feelings. Like, I would love descriptions of people, not who they are, but I've seen the other side of that. I was using Seeing AI, showing it off to actors, and it told me who they were because they were celebrities. It knew their name because there are so many pictures online of them, and I was like, whoa, and I didn't know it could do that. Yeah, so I definitely see, and I know the reason they block it is for stalkers, because originally when they kind of borrowed the picture recognition technology from Oath or Yahoo, they Facebook, it became used for stalkers to find people they were looking for in by using images. So that's why it's blocked. But I don't know. I would love to have descriptions of people at least.
I would love though, because in theory, I mean, and I don't know how they make this work in similar ways, but a sighted person, when they walk into a room or when they're in a cocktail reception or they're somewhere, they are able to glance over and know very quickly, A, who's around, and B, if that person's engaged, if they're talking to somebody, if they're available, if they're wandering around, maybe they look lost. I don't know what it is. I would love to have some of that ability. I'm glad we could talk about it briefly. And again, if anyone has thoughts, send your thoughts, any ideas, any thoughts on this or anything we have talked about to podcast@humanware.com. Welcome back to everyone's favorite segment, the cringeworthy moment here on Humanware. See Things Differently with Humanware, the podcast. This one, we always kick around what we're going to talk about. I think for all of our listeners who are blind and low vision, who kind of talk through these things with each other, you all have moments that you talk about. But I want to talk about food. And Rachel is the one who brought this one up. And she just had, I think, a recent experience, which she's going to talk about in a moment. But I think we all have food fears or food issues that have arisen. And I'll get into some.
I will eat most
minute,
anything.
Rachel, what happens?
Picky when it comes to food. I love it all. But there are some things that you don't expect. So I was recently enjoying some breakfast at a recent conference, and I had one of those lovely eggs and potatoes and sausage and all those good things we love to fuel up for the day. And I thought that I was going to enjoy a lovely forkful of sausage, and instead it was the piece of orange that was garnishing the plate. I thought, oh, well, that's a surprise, and consumed it and no problem. But it just reminded me of times I'm sure everyone on this show has had where you think you're eating something and you get something unexpected. And what do you do? In my case, I just consumed it. It was no problem.
Sometimes you just have to eat it, especially depending on the company you have around. You just have to act like you just kind of barrel right through it, right? I think we've all eaten our fair share of like bay leaves, or you can say, in this kind of carries over. And there is, I'm like you, Rachel, and you know this. I mean, there is no food I won't eat. Not really, not one. And I've been fortunate enough to go to different parts of the world, and I'll eat wild things. I mean, absolutely wild things. The only problem though is I don't know how to eat all of those foods, because oftentimes, especially when it's something you didn't grow up with or you're not familiar with, you might love the food, but when they serve it to you, you don't know what to do with it. And I've had scenarios where, like, if you don't know how to work with crab claws, that's going to be kind of tough to kind of learn on the fly when you're in a nice business dinner. Have you ever had, any of those kind of stories, you guys? I mean, just odd things that have kind of
I've only had this happen once, and I might be the only one who's it's happened to. I was eating a burger, and I was at a restaurant. I had a few beverages already, and it was real loud in this place. And this burger comes. It's a big burger, and I reach out and I grab and I'm like holding it, and you do the usual things. You check for stuff like what's on the and so I take a bite, and there was a toothpick in
Oh
it,
no.
and it was pushed down into the bun, so it wasn't like first feel, and I got a toothpick like long ways partial. It might have been half a toothpick, I don't know, but in my mouth, and I'm like,
I've totally done this. Yeah.
okay, see, that makes me feel better. I felt so alone at that moment because I've only done it once.
I've actually experienced having food thrown at me, and I must say it's actually very enjoyable. I've just learnt now not to make sure that I'm not wearing anything nice or going to get stained, because I really can't catch the food for some odd reason.
Well, thank you for sharing, everybody. And yeah, I love it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to eat, but definitely if you have any cringe-worthy food stories, I'm sure there are some that will come in. Feel free to send them to podcast@humanware.com. I must say, we haven't had a ton of feedback coming in. I've gotten some really nice notes from listeners, but not many stories. So I'm waiting we need some stories. We're going to have to really pump up the story content coming in from the listeners. We all appreciate the accolades, but bring us any stories, anything that relates to you. Feel free to send it to us. Joe,
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is amazing. David, Australia is on my bucket list, so I haven't been there yet, but I will make it there.
Well, everybody, we will be back with another segment, and thanks again to Joe. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, David, and we will see you in a second. Welcome back to our partner corner, everybody. And this month we are keeping it international, and we've gone across the pond both ways. We've gone to Australia. That's a huge pond. We've gone across the Atlantic. We're going to go a little bit north of the border, and we're going to talk to someone who's a friend of mine, but also a podcaster who knows way more about this than I do. So I'm going to need some advice from our partner, Mr. Steve Barkley. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing just great, thanks.
Can I just say, I brought this just for you. Does that work?
All right.
Does that work?
Oh, absolutely. Got to have more cowbell.
I was a drummer back in a previous life, so I had to dust it off. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got to talk to Steve Barkley, host of the AT Banter podcast." And so I'm really happy to have you on the See Things Differently with Humanware podcast. And can you just, I guess, talk a bit about Canadian Assistive Technology, which is your company? What exactly do you guys do?
We do all kinds of equipment for people with disabilities. So a large portion of that is, of course, low vision and blindness stuff, which is where we cross trails constantly. But we also do a lot of other areas. So we do some equipment for physical access, for getting people who have physical disabilities connected to computers and tablets and the like, for the purposes of communication and control of their environment. We do some augmentative communication devices for the nonverbal, so helping people speak who can't normally speak. And then we have some products for dementia and some products for hearing loss.
That's awesome. So yeah, pan disability. I guess the other question is, so from a Humanware, from a distributor standpoint, you are in Western Canada, but you certainly do sell product not just in BC, correct?
Yeah, we're right across the country.
Which is awesome. I know you cover a lot of it, and between yourself and Rob and Ryan do the awesome podcast. And so I really wanted to have you on to talk a bit. How can people find you and find Canadian Assistive Technology?
Well, Canadian Assistive Technology is pretty straightforward to find. You can find us on our website at www.canasstech.com. Very polite. CANASSTECH.com.
Love it.
You can also find the AT Banter podcast at atbanter, all one word, .com. And if you're really bored one day and you want to go through 400 plus episodes, you can start binge listening.
Steve, I really appreciate having you on, and we definitely, hopefully we'll have you back. We can do some crossover, some cross-pollination podcasting. But can I just leave you with a quick banter?
Banter.
Hello and welcome to another Tips and Tricks segment. In this segment, we are going to be looking at the brand new support introduced on the Victor Reader stream for searching and downloading audiobooks from Bookshare. First, I'm going to make sure that I'm on my online bookshelf, and then I'm going to press key 1 to get to my Bookshare utility.
Bookshare 3. Books. Search for books.
I'm already on the Search for Books category, so I'm going to press Confirm.
Most popular.
And now I can search by most popular, I can browse by category, but I'm going to press key 6 until I get to Author Search.
Most recent. Browse categories. Previous downloads. Title search. Author search.
And I'm going to press Confirm.
Enter text to search. Dan Brown. D-A-N space B-R-O-W-N.
Now I already have the author in here that I'd like to search for. If you want to search for a different author, you can simply use the keypad to type that author's name in, and I'm going to press Confirm. I'm going to search for books by Dan Brown.
Confirmed. 100. Results found. 1. Inferno, featuring Robert Langdon, Dan Brown.
And I'm going to search for the Da Vinci Code, so I'm going to press key 6 to go forward through these results.
2. Digital Fortress. 3. The Lost Symbol. 4. The Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown.
Now here is the Da Vinci Code, but I want to make sure that this is the audio version and not the DAISY version. So to check the format, I'm going to press key 5.
Format, DAISY, BRF.
So that said the format was DAISY. That's not the one I'm particularly looking for, so I'm going to press key 6 to go to the next result.
5. The Da Vinci Code, the Young Adult Adaptation, Dan Brown. 6. The Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown.
Here's the next result. I'm going to press key 5 to check the format.
Format, DAISY Audio, Description, while in Paris.
I'm pressing the play pause key to stop the speech. This said DAISY Audio. That is indeed the one I want, so I'm going to press Confirm to download the book.
The Da Vinci Code, queued for download. Bookshare, download completed.
All right, we have the Da Vinci Code now downloaded. Now I'm going to press key 1 to go back to my Bookshare bookshelf.
Bookshare 4. Books. 1. Health Psychology, Topics in Applied Psychology.
I'm going to press key 4 to get to the latest result.
Search for books. 4. World Geography. 3.
The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Read by Jeff Harding.
And that is just one of many audiobooks available on Bookshare that are human narrated, and those downloads are now directly supported through the Victor Reader stream.
All right, everybody, it's time for the upcoming shows, and this is a very international flavor to our upcoming shows, and we're excited to be able, to bring our products to you wherever you may be in the world, and maybe we will be even closer to you next time. But right now, we'll be talking about what is upcoming between now and the June episode, and we will be at Sight City, one of the largest, actually the largest assistive technology show for blindness technology and many other cross-disability pieces of tech. May 21st to May 23rd, that'll be taking place at the CAP Europa. Booth level 2, stand 3 is where we will be. We will also be, we talk about Sight City, we need to mention that we'll be at Sight Village, Glasgow. So in Scotland, in Glasgow, May 21st, that is going to be taking place at the Glasgow Science Centre. Going all the way across the world, floating through the air, we will be at the Roundtable Conference in Melbourne, Australia, or as it's really supposed to be said, Melbourne. We will be at the Stanford Hotel. That'll be from May 25th to the 27th. And finally, yours truly, Peter Tusick, along with Nigel from our Humanware Europe team, will be in Amsterdam at the Tactile Reading Conference. This will be at the Museekgebouw, which is in Amsterdam. We will be there from June 2nd to the 4th, so the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Please come see us. We will be I'll be giving out lots of hugs as I do, lots of high fives, fist bumps, waves, although I won't know if you're waving at me. whatever it takes to say hi. Please come see one of our representatives. We certainly will be at other shows and other events coming up. We're about to hit summer show season here in the United States, which we will certainly have a presence at both the American Council of the Blind as well as the National Federation of the Blind convention. So please look for us and come say hi.
If you have comments or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Please send them to podcast@humanware.com. That's podcast@humanware.com. We'll see you next month.